Hello everyone. If you bought a PC or laptop preloaded with Windows operating system, it's very likely that your entire disk space is put in a single primary volume or drive, which is Windows volume or C drive, like the one I'm having here right now. Although the NTFS file system used by Windows supports drive volume size of up to 256 terabytes, for better files organization and future convenience reasons, if you have a disk drive of 240 gigabytes or larger, it's recommended that you partition your drive into at least two partitions. One for Windows and program files, and the other for your personal files. By putting your personal files in separate partitions, it will be very convenient for you in the future to do clean reinstallation or major upgrade of Windows, as it saves you the trouble of backing up all your personal files to another storage device. Therefore, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to partition a disk drive using Windows Disk Management Tool. And because Windows Disk Management Tool has not changed since Windows 7, this tutorial applies to Windows 7 and later, including the latest Windows 11. Alright, let's get started. To open the Windows Disk Management Tool, if you are on Windows 10 or 11, right-click the Windows Start menu button, and then click Disk Management. Alternatively, especially if you are on Windows 7, you can access the disk management through Computer Management. To open the Computer Management, on Windows 7, click Start and then Run, and then type in CompMGMT and press Enter on the keyboard. Then on the Computer Management's console tree on the left, click Disk Management. This is basically the same as the standalone disk management on Windows 10 and 11. And for this tutorial, I'm going to use the standalone disk management. So as you can see here, even though on File Explorer your disk drive appears to have only one volume, it is actually partitioned into three partitions. However, the other two partitions, the EFI system and Windows recovery partitions, are not accessible to users as indicated by the disabled context menu as shown here. So to partition your Windows volume, first you need to shrink that volume to the desired size. To do that, right-click the volume and then click Shrink Volume. On the Shrink Volume dialog, enter the amount of space to shrink. This will be the space to be made available for the new partitions. In this example, I'm going to shrink my Windows volume to 120 gigabytes so that I will have enough space for my Windows and all my program files. So the amount of space I have to shrink is the total size before shrink minus 120 gigabytes. But please take note that 1 gigabyte here is equivalent to 1024 megabytes and not 1000 megabytes. So for my case here, I will have to subtract 122,880 megabytes from the total size before shrink of 476,311 megabytes, which comes out as 353,431 megabytes. So I enter 353431 and then click Shrink. Now as you can see here, my C drive is shrunk to exactly 120 gigabytes, and I have 345 gigabytes unallocated space on the right of the Windows volume. To create a new partition from the unallocated space, right-click on the unallocated space and then click New Simple Volume. On the first New Simple Volume wizard dialog, click Next. Then on the New Volume Size dialog, enter the new simple volume size. If you want to use all the unallocated space as a single new partition, simply click Next. But for my case, I'm going to create a partition of 200 gigabytes and leave some unallocated space for some demo later in this tutorial. So here I will enter simple volume size of 204,800 megabytes. And then I will click Next. On the Drive Letter dialog, select the drive letter for the new partition. Since the Windows volume is assigned a drive letter of C, I'm going to assign D to this partition, and then click Next to continue. On the Format Partition dialog, click Format the volume with the following settings. Under File System, select NTFS, and leave Default as the allocation unit size. Then type in the volume label for the new partition. For example here I'm gonna label it Work. Make sure the Perform Quick Format checkbox is ticked, and then click Next to continue. On the next confirmation dialog, review the settings of the simple volume you are about to create one more time. If everything is okay, click Finish to start the partitioning process. Once the new partition is successfully created, it will be shown next to the Windows volume. And if you open the File Explorer, you should also see your newly created partition like the one I'm showing you right now. So that's how simple it is to partition an existing volume into multiple smaller partitions. But now you might ask, What if you want to make a partition larger in the future? To extend a partition is easy, but it will be a little bit trickier than creating a new one, as there are some rules imposed by the disk management. In some cases, it may require you to move your files from one partition to the other first. The first rule is that you can only extend a partition to an unallocated space. This means that you will need to shrink a volume before you can extend another one. The second rule is that the unallocated space has to be located on the same disk and immediately to the right of the partition to be extended. For example, here I have an unallocated space on disk 0 to the right of D drive. I can only use this unallocated space to extend D drive but not C drive, as indicated by the disabled Extend Volume menu for C drive. So if I want to extend my D drive to take up all the unallocated space on its right, I simply right-click D drive and then click Extend Volume. On the first Extend Volume wizard dialog, click Next. On the Select Disks dialog, I simply click Next as I want to use all the unallocated space to extend D drive. And then on the confirmation dialog, I simply click Finish. Now my D drive becomes 345 GB in size after being extended. That's easy. But what if in the future I want to extend my C drive by say 40 GB? To extend my C drive by 40 GB, I will have to shrink my D drive to 40 GB first. Yes, to 40 GB and not by 40 GB. And if the D drive's used space is already larger than 40 GB, I will also have to move some files to another partition or storage device first before I shrink it. To show you how we can extend C drive, first I will shrink my D drive to 40 GB. And then I create a simple volume from the unallocated space. After that I will move all my files on D drive to that new volume, because I will have to delete the D drive to make its space available for C drive later. Once I finish moving all my files from D drive, I can safely delete it through disk management. To delete a volume or partition, right-click that partition and then click Delete Volume. And now I can extend my C drive to take up all the unallocated space to its right. So right-click C drive, and then click Extend Volume. Click Next on the following two dialogues, and then on the confirmation dialog click Finish. If nothing goes wrong, you should have your C drive extended by the amount of space you free up from the D drive. And to tidy up the volume's drive letters, right-click the E drive and then click Change Drive Letter and Paths. On the dialog shown, click Change. And then select D from the drive letter drop-down list. After that click OK. On the confirmation dialog, click Yes. Alright, so that's how to partition disk drive using Windows Disk Management tool. Feel free to leave a comment or question down below. Thank you for watching and see ya in the next tutorial.